Being disciplined is doing what you need to do, even when you don't feel like doing it.
I was literally going to say the same thing. Yeah.
But knowing that you need to do it, just getting up and getting it done. No
Yeah.
excuses.
I think that's a really good question, because I think the young me would say, I feel like this is something my mum would say, yes, everything you need is in the Bible. But I feel like it's the foundation.
So if you're speaking things into reality, like when you read these books, it speaks about, speaking things into reality, thoughts become things,
Manifesting.
Your words and stuff like that, manifesting, like you said, there's life and death in the tongue.
What you fill your conscious mind with is what your subconscious becomes. Yeah, so those habits are very important to work on.
And just on that, if we're being honest, a lot of these self-help books, it all comes from the Bible, in terms of like the principles.
Yeah, just repackaged it.
Just repackaged it.
It's one of my favorite things to really delve into is discipline, and the relationship discipline brings to any goal that you set. Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. Discipline is such an underrated.
How would you define discipline?
How would I define discipline? I'd define discipline in a. Do you know what? I'd link it to being very. So you're goal orientated. Being disciplined is doing what you need to do, even when you don't feel like doing it.
I was literally going to say the same thing. Yeah.
But knowing that you need to do it, just getting up and getting it done. No excuses.
Yeah. When you
just
set
get up
yourself a
and get it
goal,
done.
regardless of how you feel, making sure you do it. And obviously your feelings are going to fluctuate. You might wake up in the morning, you feel tired, you want to go to the gym, but you're still going to go to the gym because you said to yourself, I'm going to go to the gym.
Yeah, and it's very important to understand that those emotions that we speak about are often fleeting emotions. They're often fleeting emotions, but the discipline stays. The discipline is what sets you apart from other people. How determined are you to your better self, to your future self? And that's how I always look at it. I always look at it in a sense that, you know what, FDS in 5 years' time deserves better than this. It deserves better than sleeping and ignoring the plans that you had set for today. My kids deserve better. So I owe it to them to make sure my present self is doing everything possible to become a better person for them. And sometimes when I look at it that way, I start to realize that, yeah, it's bigger than me. And I remember on the last, on a couple of episodes ago, we spoke about it, why do people quit a lot? And I always say it's the same thing. You quit sometimes, most times for me anyway, is because people's goals aren't bigger than them. And, your goals aren't bigger than you. If you're doing something that affects other people, you know that you can't afford to quit. I can't afford to quit when I'm tired. Man. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And I think discipline is that bridge that gets you from where you are and where you need to be.
It's like just choosing to persist, not regardless of how you're feeling. It's not about how you feel or your emotion. You're going to keep going.
Do you know what? I like that, but emotions is a very important part of life. It's a very important part of your being, right? It's understanding which emotion doesn't do you well. Yeah? If you know that, put it this way, I'm hungry, yeah? But I've just come back from the gym. I really want a burger. My emotions telling me to get a burger because that's what will make me feel good. But I know that actually, in terms of what I'm trying to achieve, I can't get a burger. So sometimes be dismissive of that one based on the goals that you have set yourself. So it then brings it back to that point that we made earlier on, and the importance of setting goals. Because without goals, without goals and objectives, you're gonna sway. There's no parameters there. Abuse is inevitable. Without parameters in place, abuse is inevitable. And if you're chasing a certain goal, if you don't have objective that you're gonna abuse yourself and you're gonna abuse the goal. But we can sit here and talk about those things there. But
I just had one passing statement just to conclude on that bit. It's a quote by John C. Maxwell. He said, "Small disciplines repeated with consistency every day lead to great achievements gained slowly over time." And I think that defines it well.
That's a brilliant definition. Is he an author, yeah?
I feel like I've heard of John C. Maxwell, but you know,
No, John C.
Yeah,
Maxwell.
he's the one
He
that
reads.
wrote highly.
He used to be a pastor. He reads. He's got loads of books about leadership, the laws of leadership, communication. So he does he's a speaker basically, public
Good
speaker
stuff.
and a pastor. He used to be a pastor. I've read a lot of his books.
Good stuff. Would you say he's a role model too?
I wouldn't say a role model, but in terms of his principles about communication and leadership, I think they're very valid, and I've applied a lot of them in my career and my life.
yeah, drop a gem.
The law of influence, for example. So the law of influence is that in order to be a leader, you need to have influence. If you don't have influence, you can't lead who you're trying to lead. It's pretty simple. Think about it. If you had a boss that you don't respect and doesn't have influence over the company, they're not able to get things done. So that's one of these laws, and one of the laws of leadership.
I think there's so many laws, and you know, you see the quote tweets and so many. It can be overwhelming. But what are the 3 things you need for great leadership?
I don't think there's 3 things, bro.
Someone could write a
Oh, a
book.
great role
tomorrow.
model.
No, someone could write a book today, and that could be the title: three keys to great leadership, and it'd sell. But I get your point. It does become overwhelming because once you've read 2 or 3 of those books, you sort of feel like, oh, you're saying the same thing. Speak to yourself positively. Be disciplined. Be relentless in your chase for perfection or chase of success and stuff like that. I get it. But sometimes it's going back to that self-limiting things. You need to ensure that you're doing everything possible to kill that negative thought processes within yourself. The subconscious is trained by what you give it, right? What you fill your subconscious with, what you fill your conscious mind with is what your subconscious becomes. Yeah, so those habits are very important to work on, and if it takes reading a book 3-4 times. Ego is the Enemy, one of my favorite books ever. Ryan Holiday. I've read that book probably about 6-7 times. Not because it's got great text, but because I like the book and I love what the book gives me. There's certain messages that you feel like you read and you understand, but I like to read, pause, and then incorporate, right? Because actually, I like this. It talks about self-aggrandizement. It talks about graduating yourselves and success and stuff like that. As much as you're your own biggest supporter, you're also your biggest critic. And having a fine balance in which, propels you to where you need to get to is very, very important. But
And just on that, if we're being honest, a lot of these self-help books, it all comes from the Bible. In terms of the principles.
Yeah, just repackaged it.
Just repackaged it.
you think so?
Yeah, when you
A
read
lot of
Proverbs,
them.
when you read
I don't
Proverbs,
know,
Proverbs has
you read
got.
Proverbs, it has,
But this is it. So obviously you guys will know more about the Christianity stuff than I would, right? But a lot of it. Okay, I think the safest way for me to put it is to say it's the basis of religious beliefs. A lot of these things are in my book as well, in terms of how to treat people, how to talk to yourself, how to ensure that you're achieving certain things. So I guess I'll have to accept that because I'm not too knowledgeable in that regards, but I do see that as well within this. But it's interesting that you made that point. I've never really made that sort of
yeah, when you start reading loads of self-help books, you realise that it's just a repeat.
So law of attraction and stuff like that, what's a perspective on that from a Christian?
Thoughts becoming things, right? That's the law of attraction. What would you define?
Yeah, all of that stuff. So I don't know if you've read the book Magic, Rhonda Byron. I don't know if you've come
Okay, for
across
example, there's life and death in the tongue. That's what it says in the Bible. So if you're speaking things into reality, when you read these books, it speaks about speaking things into reality, thoughts become things, your words and stuff like that, manifesting, like you said. There's life and death in the tongue. That's the principle.
So you'd say for Christians, basically, stuff the books and just read your Bible.
I feel like certain books can give you different perspectives and give you certain application of certain laws. But I think the basis of it is, a lot of the stuff that you want to kind of learn or you want to self-development, a lot of it comes from the Bible. If you just read Proverbs, I don't know if you've read Proverbs before.
No, I'm not a Christian.
Yeah, but Fair enough. But generally speaking, like there's a lot of knowledge in there that you can apply to
Fair enough. Fair enough.
business.
I think that's a really good question, you know, because I think the young me would say, I feel like this is something my mum would say, yes, everything you need is in the Bible. But I feel like it's the foundation. But like Dap said, like other books provide examples or like how to do it, but everything is in the Bible.
Very interesting.
From love to words of wisdom, stories, and the end times.
How to deal with certain people, how to deal with friends, how to deal with your relationships, how to deal with conflict.
Divorce, everything's there. It's the best book.